Welcome to Monk's Temple. Let's begin with a question that might feel a little uncomfortable. It's a question we don't usually ask ourselves, because we're too busy doing the opposite. What if the part of you that you hate the most is actually your greatest protector? Think about that for a moment. That flash of anger that scares you. That anxiety that keeps you up at night. That stubborn pride that won't let you apologize. That deep, quiet sadness you try to outrun. We spend so much energy trying to get rid of these things. We fight them. We medicate them. We numb them. We push them down into the dark corners of our psyche and hope they stay there. We live in a culture that is obsessed with extermination. We have pills to kill the pain. We have positive affirmations to kill the negative thoughts. We have self-help gurus telling us to banish our inner demons. The language is always the same: fight, conquer, overcome, destroy. It's a war. And in a war, you create an enemy. And when you create an enemy inside your own mind, you create a battlefield inside your own heart. And that battlefield is exhausting. But what if there's another way? What if the entire war model is based on a misunderstanding? What if your darkness isn't the enemy, but just a force that has been given the wrong job? This is not a new question. It's an ancient one. And to find the answer, we have to travel back over 1200 years, to a land that was itself a battlefield. A land of towering, snow-capped mountains and deep, shadowed valleys. A land called Tibet. In the 8th century, Tibet was not a blank slate. It was alive. Not just with people and yaks and nomads, but with something else. Something you couldn't see, but you could feel. The air itself felt thick with presence. Every mountain had a name. Every lake had a spirit. Every pass was guarded by a god. These weren't abstract beliefs, they were the operating system of the culture. You didn't cross a certain valley without making an offering. You didn't build a house without appeasing the Earth Lord who lived beneath the soil. These forces, call them spirits, call them gods, call them demons, they were the landlords of the physical and psychic landscape. And they were not interested in new tenants. Into this world came a king with a dream. His name was Trisong Detsen. He was a powerful ruler, but he was also a man with a vision. He had seen the elegance of the Buddha's teachings, brought to him by merchants and wandering monks from the south. He saw a philosophy of compassion, a path to end suffering, a science of the mind that promised peace. He wanted this for his people. He wanted to plant the seed of enlightenment in the snow of Tibet. So, he did what any sensible king would do. He called in an expert. He invited the most respected Buddhist scholar of his time, a man named Shantarakshita, from the great monastic university of Nalanda in India. This was a master of logic, a prince of philosophers. If anyone could explain Buddhism to the Tibetans, it was him. Shantarakshita arrived with his monks, his scriptures, and his impeccable logic. He surveyed the land and picked a spot for the first great Buddhist monastery in Tibet, Sami. It was a perfect location, a wide valley, a sacred confluence of rivers. The king was thrilled. The work began. And then, the work stopped. The first day, the walls went up. By sunset, they were scattered stones across the valley floor. The second day, they tried again. A sudden, inexplicable storm swept through the valley, lightning striking the half-built walls, scattering the workers. The third day, The workers arrived to find the stones they had laid had been moved back to the riverbed during the night. Workers reported seeing figures in the mist. Tools would vanish from their hands. A strange sickness fell over the masons. The sky would be clear and blue, and then, in an instant, turn black with rage. Shantarakshita, the master logician, tried logic. He sat in meditation and sent thoughts of loving kindness to the spirits. The storms got worse. He performed elaborate rituals of pacification. The walls crumbled faster. His monks, dedicated to non-violence, watched in terror as the very earth seemed to reject them. They whispered among themselves. The spirits were too strong. The old gods were too powerful. Buddhism was not welcome here. It was being rejected, violently, by a land that was already full. One evening, after another day of watching his dream literally collapse into rubble, King Trisong Detsen stood with Shantarakshita on a hillside. The air was cold. The king's heart was colder. "Venerable One," he said, his voice heavy with defeat. "You are the greatest scholar in the world. Your words are like a sword that cuts through delusion. But they cannot cut through this mountain wind. What are we missing?" Shantarakshita, his orange robes whipping in that very wind, looked at the king with ancient eyes. He was a man who understood his own limitations. He knew the sutras. He knew the path of gradual purification. But this was not a problem for scholars. This was a problem for a different kind of master. "Your Majesty," he said, choosing his words carefully. "I am a monk. My path is like that of a gentle rain, nourishing the earth over time. But this land requires a storm. It requires a force that can meet these spirits, not with arguments, but on their own ground. My methods are like trying to capture a wild yak with a silk rope. It will not hold. We need someone who can speak the language of the wild. We need someone who knows how to transform, not just teach." The king leaned closer. Who can do this?" "There is a master in India," Shantarakshita replied. "He is not like me. He does not dwell only in monasteries. He dwells in charnel grounds, in caves, in places where the veil between worlds is thin. He is a tantric master. His name is Padmasambhava. It is said that the demons bow to him. Send for him. He is the only one who can bind these forces by oath." The name meant nothing to the king. But the hope it ignited meant everything. He sent messengers across the Himalayas with a simple plea: "Come to Tibet. We are building a temple, and the demons are winning. We need you." Now, you need to understand who they were calling for. Padmasambhava wasn't just another monk who had read a few extra books. His very origin story defies the laws of nature and announces the kind of being we are dealing with. The story goes like this. In the land of Adhyana, which scholars today place in the Swat Valley of modern-day Pakistan, there was a king named Indrabhuti. He was a good king, but he had one great sorrow: he was blind. One day, while walking in his garden, he came upon a beautiful lake, Danakosha. And in the center of that lake, floating on the surface, was a gigantic, luminous lotus flower. It wasn't just any lotus. It was pulsating with light, radiating a warmth that the blind king could feel on his face. He asked his minister, "What is in the center of the lake?" "I feel a presence." The minister, squinting, gasped. "My lord, there is a lotus." And sitting in the center of that lotus, is a child. A beautiful child, 8 years old, glowing with its own inner light. The king, though blind, was drawn to the shore. As he knelt, a single drop of water from the lotus splashed onto his eyes. Instantly, his sight was restored. For the first time in years, he could see. And the first thing he saw was the child on the lotus, holding a vajra, a ritual scepter symbolizing skillful means, and a lotus, symbolizing wisdom. The child was already enlightened. The king, overwhelmed with devotion, took the child as his own and named him Padmasambhava, which literally means, Lotus-Born. This is the story. He wasn't born from a womb. He wasn't born from the usual human trauma and conditioning. He was a spontaneous, enlightened manifestation, come into the world for a specific purpose. Now, whether you take this story literally or metaphorically, it establishes the core idea. He was not a product of his environment. His environment was a product of him. He was pure potential, unsullied by the usual fears and aversions that make us human. He had no shadow of his own to project, which meant he could look at the shadows of others without flinching. He grew up in the palace, but he showed no interest in kingly power. Instead, he manifested actions that would get him thrown out of the palace, because his real work was not on a throne, but in the wild. He killed the son of a minister, and as punishment, was banished from the kingdom. He was sent to the charnel grounds, the places where dead bodies were left to decay, the most terrifying places imaginable. For a normal person, a charnel ground is a place of ultimate fear. It's where your worst nightmares live. For Padmasambhava, it was a university. He went there not to be scared, but to learn. He sat among the decaying corpses, surrounded by jackals and carrion birds, and he meditated on the nature of impermanence. He met the terrifying dakinis, the wrathful female spirits who dwell in such places, and he didn't run. He received teachings from them. He transformed the charnel ground from a place of death into a place of profound wisdom. He mastered the wildness by becoming one with it, not by opposing it. He spent decades doing this. He studied with the greatest tantric masters in India, learning how to work with the subtle energies of the body and mind. He learned how to see the enlightened essence behind every fearful form. By the time the king of Tibet's call reached him, he was not just a teacher. He was a force of nature. When Padmasambhava accepted the invitation, he didn't pack his bags and look for a caravan. He began his journey in a way that would announce his method to every spirit in the Himalayas. He needed a guide, someone who knew the land. He found her, or rather, she found him. Her name was Yeshe Tsogyal. Now, here is another story that could fill its own volume. Yeshe Tsogyal was a Tibetan princess. She was brilliant, fiercely intelligent, and utterly unwilling to accept the life that had been planned for her, a life of political marriage and palace intrigue. She heard whispers that a great master was coming from India, a master who taught the direct path to enlightenment. On the night before her wedding, she made a choice. She escaped. She slipped past the guards, climbed down from her tower, and ran into the wilderness. She had no idea where she was going. She only knew what she was leaving behind. She found him. Imagine their meeting. She was a princess in rags, exhausted, hungry, but with a fire in her eyes that could not be extinguished. She bowed before him and said, "Make me your student." Padmasambhava looked at her. He didn't see a runaway princess. He saw a mind of Vajra-like clarity, a vessel capable of holding the most profound teachings. He accepted her, not just as a student, but as his spiritual companion. In the tantric tradition, this is not what you might think. It is a profound union of wisdom and method, of feminine and masculine principle, a partnership on the path. She would become known as the mother of Tibetan Buddhism, the one who would write down his teachings and hide them for future generations. Their journey into Tibet required crossing the Himalayas. The passes are over 15,000 feet high. The air is thin. The winds are brutal. Bandits roam the lower valleys. The spirits of the mountains test every traveler. To make this crossing, Yeshe Tsogyal, through the practices Padmasambhava had already begun to teach her, manifested a tiger. Some say she transformed into a tigress. Others say she summoned one. The tiger is the ultimate symbol of raw, untamed power. It doesn't ask permission. It doesn't negotiate. This is your first metaphor for transformation. You have a problem in your life, a source of great fear or anger. The normal approach is to try to kill the tiger. You build a bigger fence. You call a hunter. You live in a state of constant, terrified vigilance. The tantric approach, Padmasambhava's approach, is to learn how to ride the tiger. You don't destroy its power. You harness it. You use its speed, its strength, its ferocity, and you direct it toward a higher goal. The tiger stops being a threat and starts being a vehicle. So, Padmasambhava, riding this tigress, with Yeshe Tsogyal, crosses the Himalayas. They don't walk. They fly. They soar over the peaks. The spirits of the mountains feel this power approaching. The earth trembles. The demons, the landlords of Tibet, gather. They feel it. This is not a monk who will chant at them from a distance. This is someone who is coming to their home. This is someone who does not blink. The demons decided to meet him at the border. They didn't wait for him to reach Sami. The first confrontation happened as he descended from the final pass. The air grew thick and dark. The temperature plummeted. And a massive figure materialized on the path before them. It was a local war god, a spirit of pure violence. He was clad in armor made of frozen bone, his eyes were whirlpools of rage, and in his hand, he held a lightning bolt, not as a symbol, but as a weapon. He roared, and the sound was an avalanche. The very mountains shook. This is the demon of pure, unadulterated aggression. It's the force that meets every new idea, every attempt at growth, with a violent no. It's the internal critic that screams, "You can't do this." It's the external force that tries to crush your spirit with brute force. Most people, when faced with this, crumble. Or they meet it with their own aggression, and a war begins. Padmasambhava looked at this towering god of violence. And he transformed. He didn't run. He didn't hide. He manifested a form called Dorje Drolo, the wrathful Vajra. He became a mirror image of the demon's own fury. He rode a pregnant tigress, a symbol of power protecting the future. He was surrounded by a mass of swirling flames. He held a Vajra, not as a peaceful symbol, but as a thunderbolt of his own. But here's the crucial difference. The demon's anger came from a place of fear and possessiveness. This is My Valley. You cannot have it. Dorje Drolo's anger came from a place of unwavering, compassionate stillness. It wasn't reactive. It was responsive. For 5 days and 5 nights, the confrontation lasted. The demon threw everything he had. Storms of hail. Lightning strikes. Earthquakes. He summoned all his power to annihilate this intruder. Padmasambhava, as Dorje Drolo, didn't attack. He didn't fight back in the way the demon expected. He simply sat in the midst of the chaos, unmoved. He outlasted. His presence was so stable, so utterly non-reactive, that the demon's fury had nothing to hit. It was like throwing rocks into a bottomless lake. Eventually, after the first few splashes, you just get tired. On the 5th day, the demon's storm began to weaken. His lightning bolts became less frequent. His roar became a croak. He had exhausted himself against an immovable object. He fell to his knees, not from defeat, but from utter bewilderment. For the first time in eons, his violence had not been met with more violence. It had been met with a stability so profound that it felt like a greater power. Padmasambhava, still in his wrathful form, spoke. His voice was not a roar, but the deep rumble of the earth itself. He didn't say, "I have won, you are my slave." He said, "I see you. I see the power you hold. For millennia, you have guarded this valley. You have been its protector. That is a noble task. But your method is destruction. I am offering you a new job. A better job. Use your power to guard not just a valley, but the path to enlightenment itself. Use your storms to clear away the obstacles for those who seek the truth. Become a protector of the Dharma." The demon looked up. No one had ever acknowledged his role before. They had only ever feared him or tried to banish him. This being saw his power, honored it, and gave it a new, more meaningful direction. In that moment, the demon's heart, if you can call it that, shifted. He bowed his head. He took an oath. He would no longer destroy. He would protect. He became a Dharmapala, a Dharma protector. This is the core of it. Violence isn't the enemy. Misguided violence is. Your anger is not the problem. The problem is what your anger is trying to do. Usually, it's trying to protect a very small, fragile sense of self. You insulted me. You threatened my pride. Padmasambhava's method was to give that anger a bigger job. Don't protect your ego, which is an illusion anyway. Protect your commitment to truth. Protect your compassion. When you get angry at an injustice in the world, that's the same energy, but it's being used to protect something vast, not something tiny. You haven't destroyed the anger. You've promoted it. This is the point where you might feel something shift inside you. A new possibility opens up. If you want to explore more of these ancient insights that feel like they were written for your modern life, please consider subscribing to Monk's Temple. We explore the wisdom that most channels are afraid to touch, the teachings that don't just inform you, but transform you. Hit the subscribe button and join us on this path. It's a simple act, but it's a way of telling the algorithm, and telling yourself, that this kind of deep work matters. Now, back to the story. The king's messengers had reported that Padmasambhava was on his way, but they hadn't heard anything since. They didn't know about the confrontation at the pass. One morning, King Trisong Detsen stood at the ruins of Sami, his heart heavy. He wondered if the Indian master had failed, or worse, been killed by the spirits. And then, a monk came running. "Your Majesty! Look!" He looked up at the pass leading into the valley. And he saw a man, riding a tigress, descending towards them. But more than that, behind the man, walked the demon. The towering, terrifying god of violence, who had destroyed his monastery, was walking calmly, like a loyal general following his king. The king was speechless. Padmasambhava arrived and was greeted by the king and the relieved Shantarakshita. He didn't say much. He simply looked at the construction site. He saw the half-built walls. He felt the lingering resistance in the air. He knew this was only the beginning. The next day, they began construction again. For a few hours, it went perfectly. The workers, emboldened by the presence of the master, worked with renewed energy. And then, it started. A worker laying a stone would suddenly look confused. "Where am I?" he'd mutter. Another would start hammering a peg into the ground, only to find the peg had vanished. Another would look up and see his friend, but it wasn't his friend, it was a raven, which then turned into a puff of smoke. Illusions began to spread. Confusion rippled through the work crews like a plague. They couldn't trust their own eyes. They couldn't trust their own minds. This was the second demon. His name was Nien Chintangla, the god of the mountains. He was not a spirit of brute force. He was a spirit of pure illusion. He didn't attack the body, he attacked the mind. He created a reality so slippery, so untrustworthy, that no work could get done. You'd try to lay a foundation, and the ground would feel like water. You'd try to lift a stone, and it would feel as light as a feather, then as heavy as a mountain. He drove people insane with doubt. This is a different kind of demon. This is the demon that lives in your head when you're trying to make a change. It's the voice of confusion. Is this the right choice? Maybe I should go back. What if I fail? What if I succeed and it's awful? Who am I to do this? It creates a fog of doubt so thick you can't move forward. It's the anxiety that spins a million possible futures, all of them terrifying, so you stay paralyzed in the present. Padmasambhava saw this. He knew that the wrathful form, Dorje Drolo, would be useless here. You cannot fight a fog with a sword. You can't outlast an illusion, you have to see through it. So, he transformed again. He manifested a form called Loden Chaks, the wise seeker. This form wasn't about power. It was about absolute, unwavering clarity. It was pure, undistracted awareness. He sat down in the middle of the construction site. He didn't chase the illusions. He didn't try to fight them. He just looked. When a worker saw a demon, Loden Chaks looked at the worker and saw the fear, not the demon. When the ground seemed to turn to water, he looked and saw it was still solid earth, just covered by a film of misperception. He was like a perfectly still mirror. An illusion can only fool you if you react to it. If you just observe it, it has no power. Nien Chintangla was a master of masks. He threw everything he had at Padmasambhava. He appeared as a terrifying snake, then as a beautiful goddess, then as a howling wind. But Padmasambhava just looked. He didn't blink. He didn't flinch. He just saw. And in that unwavering gaze, the masks began to slip. The illusions began to stutter. They couldn't hold their form because they were being seen for what they were, just empty projections. Finally, the spirit revealed his true form, not a monster, but a being of immense age and weariness. He was tired. Tired of wearing masks. Tired of scaring people. Padmasambhava spoke to him, not with thunder, but with the quiet voice of recognition. For so long, you have hidden behind forms. You have protected the mountains by creating confusion, so no one would dare to truly see them, or truly see you. But what are you protecting? What is it that you are so afraid of being seen? The question pierced through the spirit. He had no answer. He had been hiding for so long, he had forgotten what he was hiding. Padmasambhava said, "You are not your illusions. You are the awareness behind them. You are the vast, clear sky that all these clouds pass through. Your true nature is clarity itself. Use your power not to confuse, but to reveal. Help beings see through their own confusion." And so, the second demon was transformed. He became a protector of truth, a guardian who helps practitioners see through the illusions of their own minds. Think about this in your own life. How much energy do you spend fighting the fog of your own anxiety? How much time do you waste arguing with your own doubts? Why am I thinking this? This is stupid. I should be positive. That's fighting the fog. Loden Chok's method is different. It's not about fighting. It's about seeing. When the fog of confusion rolls in, don't get lost in it. Just notice it. Ah, there is anxiety. Ah, there is doubt. By simply naming it, by looking at it without judgment, you begin to drain it of its power. You are not the fog. You are the one noticing the fog. The monastery started to rise. With the first two demons transformed, the construction progressed faster. But there was a third. And this one was perhaps the hardest. His name was Tsu Marpo, the god of the territories. He was a proud, sovereign lord. He didn't attack with violence or illusion. He simply refused. He sat on his mountain and withheld his consent. He was the king of the local gods, and he would not bow to this foreign teacher or his foreign teachings. His pride was absolute. This is the demon of pride. It's the force that says, "I don't need help. I'm fine on my own. I know better." It's the wall you build around yourself to protect a fragile ego. It's the refusal to admit you're wrong, to ask for directions, to be vulnerable. Pride can't be broken. If you try to break it, you just shatter the person. You can't fight it with wrath, because it will just become more stubborn. You can't see through it with clarity, because it will just blind itself. Padmasambhava understood this. For the third time, he transformed. This time, he manifested as Padma Jayalpo, the Lotus King. This form was pure royal majesty. He didn't approach Tsu Marpo as a conqueror. He approached him as an equal, as one sovereign to another. He sat before the proud god, not in supplication, not in aggression, but in a silent recognition of his sovereignty. The monks watched from a distance, expecting another cosmic battle. Instead, they witnessed a silent standoff between two kings. The air was thick with tension. But the scariest thing wasn't the god's anger. It was Padmasambhava's perfect calm. Tsu Marpo was used to fear. He was used to people groveling. He was not used to being met with a calm, steady, utterly confident gaze that held no trace of challenge. After a long silence, Padmasambhava spoke. Tsu Marpo, he said, his voice carrying the weight of a throne. You are a king. Your pride is not a flaw. It is the essence of your sovereignty. You have guarded these lands with dignity for longer than memory can hold. That is a noble thing. But tell me, what is the true measure of a king? Is it the size of his territory? Or is it the eternal truth he serves? He continued, I am not here to diminish you. I am here to offer you an elevation. Serve this Dharma, this eternal truth of how to end suffering, and your kingship will not be limited to these few valleys. It will become cosmic. Your pride will no longer be a shield for a small kingdom, but a pillar supporting the path to enlightenment for all beings. Your sovereignty will become eternal. Tsu Marpo listened. This being wasn't trying to take his throne. He was offering him a greater one. He wasn't being asked to surrender his pride. He was being asked to place it in the service of something infinitely more worthy of it. The proud god, the one who refused to bow, finally bowed his head. Not in defeat, but in acceptance of a higher calling. He, too, took an oath. He became one of the most fierce and powerful protectors of the Buddhist teachings. This is the transformation of pride. You don't destroy it. You can't. A person without pride has no spine. But you can elevate it. You can stop being proud of your car, your house, your status, things that can be taken away. And you can start being proud of your integrity, your kindness, your commitment to growth. You can be proud of the way you showed up for a friend in need, even when it was hard. You can be proud of your willingness to learn, to change, to say, I was wrong. You haven't killed your pride. You've just given it something real to hold on to. With the third demon transformed, the valley fell silent. The three great forces that had resisted the Dharma, violence, illusion, and pride, were now its protectors. The king gave the order. The construction of Sami began again. This time, the walls held. The spirits didn't just stop interfering, they helped. They carried stones. They guarded the workers. They cleared the weather. The monastery rose from the valley floor like a prophecy fulfilled. It was completed around the year 779. Sami, Tibet's first Buddhist monastery, stood as a monument not to conquest, but to integration. It was designed as a mandala, a symbolic map of the universe, with a central temple representing Mount Meru, the axis of the world, surrounded by 4 temples for the 4 continents. It was a physical representation of the new, integrated reality Padmasambhava had created. The wild forces of Tibet were now part of the sacred architecture. This story of the 3 demons is not just a quaint legend from a distant land. It is a perfect, practical manual for psychological and spiritual transformation. Let's look at it through a modern lens. Think of the first demon, Pihar, the spirit of violence. In your life, this is your anger. It's the flash of heat in your chest when you're cut off in traffic. It's the cold, hard knot in your stomach when you're disrespected. The modern world tells you to suppress it, to meditate it away, or to express it and regret it. Padmasambhava's method is different. He says, don't get rid of it. Interview it. Ask it, what are you trying to protect right now? The anger might say, I'm protecting my safety. I'm protecting my self-worth. I'm protecting my right to be treated fairly. Those are not bad things. The anger is just a clumsy, terrified guardian. Your job is not to fire the guardian. Your job is to train it. Give it a better post. Next time you feel that flash of anger, instead of reacting, pause and say, thank you for trying to protect me. I am safe now. Let's use this energy to set a clear boundary instead of starting a war. You are riding the tiger. Think of the second demon, Nien Shintangla, the master of illusion. This is your anxiety and your self-doubt. It's the endless loop of what-ifs. It's the feeling that the ground is never solid beneath your feet. The modern world tells you to distract yourself from it, scroll past it, or take a pill to make it go away. Padmasambhava's method is to look at it without blinking. Don't try to figure out which of the anxious thoughts are true. They are all illusions. Just watch the parade. Ah, there's the, I'm going to fail, thought. Ah, there's the, everyone is judging me, thought. Ah, there's the, I'm not good enough, thought. By simply observing them, you stop being the victim of them. You become the sky, not the cloud. The power of the illusion is in your reaction. Withdraw the reaction, and the illusion dissolves. Think of the third demon, Tsau Marpo, the spirit of pride. This is your ego. It's the part of you that needs to be right, to be seen, to be special. The modern world tells you to feed it, to build a personal brand, to collect achievements and accolades. The spiritual world often tells you to crush it, to be humble to the point of self-abnegation. Padmasambhava offers a third way, elevate it. Don't be proud of being the best in the room. Be proud of creating a room where everyone feels like they are the best. Don't be proud of your accomplishments. Be proud of the effort, the integrity, the compassion that went into them. Shift your pride from the ephemeral to the eternal. You haven't destroyed your ego. You've given it a job that is actually worthy of its energy. Padmasambhava's work in Tibet didn't end with the building of Sami. That was just the beginning. For decades, he traveled throughout Tibet and the Himalayas. He didn't teach in grand monasteries. He taught in caves. He taught on remote mountainsides. He taught in hidden valleys. He taught a small, core group of students, King Trisong Detsen, Yeshe Tsogyal, and 25 main disciples. Together with Shantarakshita, they undertook the monumental task of translating the Buddhist scriptures from Sanskrit into Tibetan. They didn't just translate words, they translated an entire worldview, making it accessible to an entire civilization. And then, Padmasambhava did something that seems either paranoid or incredibly far-sighted, perhaps both. He began to hide the teachings. Not because he was secretive, but because he understood something fundamental about human nature and the nature of time. He knew that teachings get corrupted. Lineages get broken. People forget. Persecutions happen. So, he and Yeshe Tsogyal encoded the most profound and esoteric teachings into symbolic forms and hid them. They hid them in rocks, in lakes, in pillars, in the sky, and most importantly, in the minds of his closest disciples. These were called terma, or hidden treasures. They were prophecies, instructions, and meditation guides, sealed with a special intention, to be discovered in the future when the time was right, when humanity was ready for them. He planted time bombs of wisdom. He entrusted their discovery to beings who would be born in future centuries, called tertons, or treasure revealers. These tertons would have a karmic connection to Padmasambhava. They would have dreams. They would have visions. They would be led to a specific rock, and inside it, they would find a scroll that contained teachings perfectly suited for their time. Perhaps the most famous of these terma is the Bardo Thodol, known in the West as the Tibetan Book of the Dead. Tradition holds that Padmasambhava composed these teachings and Yeshe Tsogyal wrote them down. They were then hidden as a terma. Centuries later, in the 14th century, a terton named Karma Lingpa discovered them. He revealed a whole cycle of teachings on death and dying that have since become one of the most studied texts in the world. This text doesn't teach you how to avoid death. It teaches you how to use death as the ultimate opportunity for liberation. It's a manual for navigating the intermediate state, the bardo, between lives. And it all traces back to Padmasambhava's foresight. This idea of terma is another powerful metaphor for your own life. You have terma hidden inside you. You have innate wisdom, buried under layers of conditioning and fear. You have moments of profound insight that you forget as soon as you get back to your daily routine. You have strengths you don't know you have. The practice of meditation, of self-inquiry, is the process of becoming a terton, a revealer of your own hidden treasures. The obstacles you face are not just obstacles, they are the rocks and lakes containing the teachings you need. The pain you feel is a terma waiting to be opened. The question is not, how do I get rid of this pain? The question is, what wisdom is this pain trying to reveal to me? Let me tell you a modern story of a terma. There was a businessman, we'll call him David. He had built a company from nothing. He was a classic Tsau Marpo type. His pride was his company. He worked 80-hour weeks. He was the first one in and the last one out. He measured his self-worth in revenue and market share. He was, by all external accounts, a massive success. Internally, he was a wreck. His marriage was failing. He hadn't spoken to his teenage son in months. His health was deteriorating. He was anxious all the time, a classic Nien Chintangla state of constant, low-grade terror that it would all disappear. He would get angry, Pihar style, at any employee who made a mistake. Then, the crash came. It wasn't dramatic. It was a slow leak. A key client left. Then another. A product launch failed. Within 2 years, the company was bankrupt. David lost everything. His pride was not just wounded, it was annihilated. He fell into a deep depression. He couldn't get out of bed. This was his charnel ground. This was the place of death. In his despair, a friend suggested he go on a silent meditation retreat. David laughed. I don't have time for that. I need to find a job. But he had no energy to find a job. He was stuck. So, out of sheer desperation, he went. The first 3 days were torture. His mind was a storm of pihar. Anger at his employees, his clients, himself. Then came the fog of Nien Chintangla. What's the point? I'll never recover. I'm a failure. Then came the hollow ache of Tsu Marpo's absence. He was no one. On the fourth day, sitting in the meditation hall, he had a moment of pure Loden Chok's clarity. He saw, with absolute certainty, that his entire identity had been built on sand. He was not his company. He was not his success. And now, he realized, he was not his failure either. The David that had been so proud, so anxious, so angry, was just a collection of thoughts and feelings. It was an illusion. And behind that illusion, for the first time, he felt a vast, quiet, peaceful presence. It was like the sun coming out from behind a cloud he didn't even know was there. He had found the terma hidden in the wreckage of his life. The collapse wasn't a punishment. It was the only thing that could crack his ego open enough for his true nature to be revealed. He didn't find a new job. He found a new life. He started working as a counselor for other struggling entrepreneurs, not teaching them how to succeed, but helping them discover what was real underneath their drive for success. A painter named Elena was famous for her vibrant, joyful landscapes. But after a personal tragedy, the joy vanished. She tried to paint, but the colors on her canvas felt dead. She was blocked. This was her demon. It wasn't a demon of violence. It was a demon of numbness. She felt nothing. She tried everything. She traveled to inspiring places. She took classes. She joined support groups. Nothing worked. The block was a wall she couldn't see through. One day, a friend gave her a set of cheap, black oil paints. "Just paint with these," the friend said. "Don't try to make it beautiful. Just paint what you feel." Elena was skeptical. She was a colorist. Black was the enemy. But in her desperation, she tried. She squeezed the black onto the palette, and for the first time in months, her hand moved toward the canvas without hesitation. She painted for hours. She painted swirling, violent, chaotic forms, all in black. She painted her grief, her rage, her numbness. She filled canvas after canvas with darkness. When she was done, she stepped back. The paintings were terrifying and ugly. But something had shifted inside her. She felt lighter. The next day, she looked at the black paintings again. And in one of them, in the midst of the swirling darkness, she noticed a tiny speck of light. It was just a spot where the canvas had shone through the paint. But to her, it was everything. It was hope. She started painting again, but differently. Now, her paintings were full of darkness, but the darkness wasn't the enemy. It was the context. It was the depth that made the light possible. The joy in her new work was not the simple, innocent joy of before. It was a hard one, deeper joy, a joy that had passed through sorrow and come out the other side. She hadn't destroyed her block. She had ridden it, like a tiger, into a new and more profound form of expression. The demon of numbness had become the guardian of a deeper truth. There was a healer, a woman named Maria, who had a gift for helping people with trauma. Her patients adored her. But Maria had a secret. She had never dealt with her own trauma. She had a Pihar-like rage toward the person who had hurt her, a rage she kept tightly locked away, because she was supposed to be a healer, and healers are peaceful. One day, a patient came to her, a man who reminded her, in some subtle way, of her abuser. As he told his story, Maria felt her own rage rising. She tried to suppress it. She tried to breathe through it. But it was too strong. She suddenly snapped. She yelled at the patient. She told him he was weak for not being over it. The patient left, devastated. Maria was horrified at herself. She had become the thing she hated. She shut down her practice. She felt like a fraud. She had tried to be a healer by banishing her own darkness, and it had exploded at the worst possible moment. This was her demon of self-hatred, the belief that she was irredeemably broken. In her shame, she sought out an older, wiser therapist. She told him the story, expecting him to condemn her. Instead, he said, "Good. Now the real work can begin. Your rage was not the problem. It was your refusal to look at it. It was locked in a dungeon, and it was trying to get out. The patient was just the key." He told her, "Your wound is not a weakness. It is your deepest teacher. And now, you will be able to help your patients in a way you never could before, because you will no longer be afraid of the darkness they bring. You will know it. You will have made peace with it." Maria took his advice. She began her own deep healing work. She learned to befriend her rage, to listen to what it was trying to protect, the little girl she used to be. She learned to transform it into a fierce, protective energy, not for her own fragile ego, but for the vulnerable parts of her patients. When she returned to her practice, she was a different healer. She didn't just offer compassion from a safe distance. She offered the hard-won wisdom of someone who had been to the underworld and come back. Her patients felt it. They felt safe with her, because she was not afraid of the dark. She had integrated her own. These stories are all echoes of Padmasambhava's work. The demons we try to banish are often the very forces we need to become whole. The shadow we run from is the source of our deepest strength. Let's go back to the Tibetan story. After decades of teaching and hiding Terma, the time came for Padmasambhava to leave. But his departure was unlike any other. He didn't die. At least, not in the way we understand death. He didn't leave a body to be cremated. He didn't pass away from old age or sickness. According to the tradition, he departed from this world in a body of light. He didn't die, he dissolved. He transformed his physical form back into its essential nature, pure radiant awareness, and vanished from the sight of his ordinary disciples. He went to his pure land, a place called Zangdak Pauri, the copper-colored mountain, a paradise where he is said to reside even now, continuing his activity for the benefit of all beings. This is not just a fairy tale. It's a statement about the ultimate potential of transformation. It's saying that the work he did, integrating all the forces of his own being, was so complete that even death lost its power over him. He became deathless. He represents the possibility that our true nature is not bound by the limitations we think are absolute. You can visit a place today that is a testament to his presence. High up in the Paro Valley of Bhutan, clinging to a sheer cliff face over 3,000 feet above the valley floor, is the Taksang Palphak Monastery, better known as the Tiger's Nest. Tradition says that Padmasambhava flew to this cave on the back of his tigress, Yeshe Tsogil's manifestation, and meditated there for 3 years, 3 months, 3 weeks, 3 days, and 3 hours. In that cave, high above the world, with nothing but rock and sky, he faced his own mind completely. And from that unbroken meditation, he manifested the enlightened activity that would ripple out for centuries. The tiger's nest is a pilgrimage site. People hike for hours up a steep mountain trail just to stand in its presence. It's a physical reminder that the path is not easy. It requires effort. It requires climbing. But the view from the top, the perspective, is worth everything. It's a place where the integration of earth and sky, fear and courage, demon and protector, is made visible in stone and prayer flags. Think about what Padmasambhava actually did. The Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama, had his own confrontation with the forces of darkness. Before his enlightenment, the demon Mara attacked him with armies of desire, fear, and doubt. The Buddha didn't fight. He touched the earth, calling the earth to witness his right to be there, and Mara's armies turned into flowers. He transformed them by his unwavering presence. Padmasambhava did the same thing, but he multiplied it. He didn't just transform one demon, he transformed an entire country's worth. He didn't just pacify them, he gave them jobs. He turned the entire psychic landscape of Tibet from an enemy into an ally. He didn't build a monastery on cleared land. He built it on land that was now guarded by its former owners. This is the essence of the Vajrayana, the tantric Buddhist path that Padmasambhava brought to Tibet. The sutra path, the path of the earlier teachings, is like a gradual slope. You work on your negative qualities, you abandon them one by one, you cultivate the positive ones. It's like cleaning a dusty room by taking each item out, dusting it, and putting it back. It works. It's thorough. But it takes a long time. The tantric path, Padmasambhava's path, is like a direct injection. It's like taking a powerful solvent and spraying it on the dust, causing it to dissolve on the spot. It doesn't avoid the dust, it works directly with it. It doesn't say, anger is bad, avoid it. It says, anger is energy. Where does that energy come from? It comes from the same source as compassion. If you can look directly at the anger, and see its true nature, it transforms into its opposite. It's not about becoming good. It's about realizing you already are, and the bad stuff is just a misunderstanding. A writer, we'll call him Tom, was paralyzed by perfectionism. He would write a sentence, then delete it. He would finish a paragraph, then start the whole page over. He had dozens of unfinished projects. His demon was a combination of Nien Chentangla's confusion and Tsayu Marpo's pride. He was confused about what was good enough, and his pride demanded that everything be perfect. He went to a writing workshop led by an unconventional teacher. The teacher's first assignment was this: write the worst page of your life. Intentionally. Write something so bad, so cliché, so poorly constructed, that you would be embarrassed for anyone to read it. You have 1 hour. Tom was horrified. This went against everything he believed. But he did it. For the first time in years, his fingers flew across the keyboard. He wrote without judgment, because the goal wasn't to be good, it was to be bad. He wrote about talking animals and purple skies and plots that made no sense. It was liberating. When he was done, the teacher said, "Now, read it." Tom read his terrible story to the class. Everyone laughed, including him. The teacher then said, "That was fun, wasn't it? Now, look at that page. In the midst of all that intentional awfulness, are there any good sentences? Any good ideas?" Tom looked. And there, buried in the dross, were a few phrases that were actually not bad. A spark of genuine creativity. By giving himself permission to be bad, he had bypassed his inner critic, his demon of perfectionism. He hadn't destroyed it. He had just learned to temporarily set it aside. He learned that the first draft is supposed to be a mess. The perfectionism is for later. It has a job, but its job is not to stop you from starting. It's to polish what's already there. He gave his demon a new job description, and the writing flowed again. These stories are all pointing to the same truth. The work of a lifetime is not to become a person without flaws. It's to become a person who has made peace with their flaws. It's to transform the battlefield of your mind into a mandala, a sacred space where every force has its place and every energy is part of the path. So, let's return to the question we started with. When you are under pressure, which demon do you become? Do you become Pihar, the violent one, lashing out to protect your fragile sense of self? Do you become Nien Shintangla, the master of illusion, creating a fog of anxiety and doubt to avoid moving forward? Or do you become Tsau Marpo, the proud one, refusing help, refusing to bend, isolating yourself on your own little mountain? Don't judge yourself for whichever one shows up. That's just more fighting. Instead, get curious. Ask the demon, in the privacy of your own mind, what are you trying to protect? What is your job? And is there a better way to do it? You might be surprised by the answer. The anger might say, "I'm protecting you from being hurt again." You can say, "Thank you. I don't need to be hurt. Let's work together to set a boundary instead of attacking." The anxiety might say, "I'm trying to anticipate every danger so you'll be safe." You can say, "Thank you. I appreciate the effort. But I can't control everything. Let's just focus on this one breath, this one step." The pride might say, "I'm holding you up so you don't fall apart." You can say, "Thank you. I need that strength. But let's use it to stand on our own, not to push others away." This is the path of integration. It is not a path of comfort. It is a path of courage. It requires you to sit in the cave with your demons, to look them in the eye, to see their pain and their function. It requires you to stop running. But the reward is not just peace. It is wholeness. It is the discovery that you were never just a frightened human being fighting a losing war. You are a vast, open space, a sky, in which all weather patterns, storms and sunshine, clouds and clear blue, can arise and pass away without ever touching your true nature. Padmasambhava, Guru Rinpoche, the Lotus-Born, didn't just transform Tibet. He left a blueprint for transforming yourself. He showed that the demons are not the problem. The war is the problem. And when you lay down your weapons, when you stop fighting yourself, you don't find a void. You find a world of forces, waiting for you to give them a better job. You find a tigress, waiting to be ridden to the highest peak. His promise, the one whispered in the mantra, the one felt in the meditation caves, the one seen in the eyes of his statues, is that he never really left. The principle he represents, the awakened quality of mind that integrates rather than destroys, is always available. It is your own birthright. It is your own potential. It is the guru, the teacher, inside you, waiting for you to stop running and start listening. So, the next time you feel that flash of anger, that wave of anxiety, that wall of pride, remember the tiger. Don't try to kill it. Don't run from it. See if you can climb on its back. See where it wants to take you. It might just be trying to carry you home. Thank you for spending this time with us at Monk's Temple. If this exploration of the shadow and its transformation resonated with you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want to continue this journey, to dive deeper into the teachings that most channels are afraid to touch, hit that subscribe button. We are here, every week, exploring the ancient wisdom that illuminates the modern path. Until next time, face your demons. They might just become your greatest protectors.